Diderot was delighted by one artist whose wonderful and poignant self-portrait you can find in the Louvre. And this is the painter, Jean-Baptiste Simeon Chardin. Chardin did this pastel drawing of himself when he was 76, and the infirmity of old age had stopped him painting in oils. In his still lives, Chardin was painting on a much smaller scale than a Rubens. And the canvases of Chardin have an apparent simplicity about them. But this art is not simplistic, and in these paintings, small, not big, is beautiful. The work of Chardin mesmerized Diderot, who saw something magical at work.
Oh Chardin, it's not white, red and black that you're mixing on your palette. It's the very substance of objects. It's the very air and light that you put on the tip of your brush and place on the canvas.
I talked to curator Marie-Catherine Sahu about Chardin and what he taught Diderot.
All Chardin's efforts went into the magic of turning the inanimate everyday objects into beautiful artwork. And for Diderot, I think, it was all about entering into the paintings and the mindset of Chardin and trying to find out what it was that made it so magical. The word magic is in fact used a number of times by Diderot, and Chardin taught him to go right up to a painting. That when you get up close to a painting, it ceases to have any significant meaning. It becomes just streaks of paint. And then, gradually, as you move away from it, everything slowly creeps into focus.
There's one painting of Chardin that I especially wanted to look at here. The one that's considered his masterpiece, the Ray. Yes, it's a still life, but with such energy and motion. Look at the cat about to pounce on the oysters. But what really draws the eye is the eviscerated form of the ray fish.
I think Chardin created a true character of the ray, personified in many senses with a seemingly tragic character. He uses the form of the ray, this triangular shape that you see, but also its whiteness to construct his painting. And then there's the semblance of a face that many people read into the painting, which is in fact neither the mouth nor the eyes, but the gills. It's a sort of anthropomorphic vision of this ray, which is, of course, also rather dramatic, with its insides coming out, reddened.
Whatever genius we now recognise in the still lives of Chardin, this style of art was seen by the Academy as inferior to the more high-minded genre of history painting. Works inspired by the past can be seen in the Salle Rouge, where hang the creations of one artist who in the late 18th century received the acclaim of the Salon, with paintings that look back to antiquity as a source of moral instruction to the present. This is the self-portrait of the artist who features in the next part of our story. It's Jacques-Louis David, and it captures him at a bad moment in his life when he was in prison during the French Revolution. But the curious thing is the expression on his face. Is he angry? Is he frightened? Or is this the self-regard of the tormented artist? He was certainly vain enough, but we're getting ahead of ourselves. In 1784, David painted this, The Oath of the Horatii, and he did it for the man who'd given him a studio and lodgings in the Louvre, Louis XVI. It tells the story of three brothers sworn to defend Rome. Look at the outstretched arms reaching towards their father, who holds the weapons of war in his hand. And look at the way the picture splits in two, between its masculine and feminine characters. The style is simple, austere with sombre colours. The painting took the Salon of 1785 by storm, hailed as an instant masterpiece of neoclassical art. But what meaning did it have from the monarch who paid for it and for others who saw it? Everyone agreed it was a patriotic painting. But was there something more subversive going on here, addressed to those now seeing themselves as citizens? Because this was a painting whose message would change during a turbulent decade of French history. Just under 10 years after David had painted the Oath of Horatii, his patron the king was dead. He was sent to the guillotine here at Place de la Concorde, and this was the most shocking moment yet in the drama of the revolution that had begun with the storming of the Bastille. On a windy morning, on January 21st, 1793, Louis XVI mounted the scaffold, watched by thousands. There was a roll of drums, and then the 12-inch blade fell. As was the custom, the severed head, dripping with blood, was held aloft for display to the citizens of the First French Republic. And so began the terror, when 18,000 men and women were sent to the guillotine. And David, now an elected deputy to the National Convention, was up to his neck in it. David voted for the killing of the king, and eagerly signed arrest warrants so that others could go to their deaths. When Robespierre's great rival Danton went to his death, David was there, shouting out mockingly, "Le voilà le scélérat, c'est ce scélérat-là qui est le grand juge. Here, look at the criminal who thinks he's the big judge." David became Robespierre's cultural commissar. He demanded that artists be at the service of the people, the meaning of their art appropriated for the revolution. And David included his own art in this command. So, when his masterpiece, The Oath of the Horatii, was shown again, it was interpreted as a work of revolutionary virtue, with oaths to la patrie, much fraternité, and a taste for martyrdom. But what paintings like this needed was a public place to educate loyal citizens of the Republic. So David and fellow revolutionaries turned to an idea proposed by Enlightenment thinkers like Diderot, who'd advocated that a permanent exhibition space be created. A museum. So where?
On the 10th of August 1793, exactly 12 months after the fall of the Ancien Régime, the Louvre was declared Musée de la Nation, the People's Museum. And the ceremony took place here in the Grande Galerie. What actually happened was that all art in France was nationalised, all art, in fact, in the territories that France also had its eye on. So what happened really was that from the royal collection in Versailles, from churches, from aristocrats, from exiles, all art now belonged to the people, la grande patrie. This was brutal and necessary, argued the likes of David and his fellow revolutionaries. But what was really happening was a seismic shift in European history. This was the moment when art ceased to be the preserve of the rich and the wealthy and was really at the service of the people.
The new museum worked to the revolutionary 10-day week. The first 6 were reserved for artists who were at liberty to take paintings off the walls to copy, free to put chalk marks on the canvases. Then the Louvre was open 3 days to the public, with the last day for cleaning and repairs. And to add to the galleries of confiscated art, the Revolutionary Army was given the order to seize new treasures during their campaigns abroad.
On the 27th of July 1798, on the anniversary of the fall of Robespierre,
an extraordinary procession of revolutionary booty from Italy made its way across Paris. And it ended up here, on the Champ de Mars. There were 80 wagons stuffed to the gills with books, manuscripts, rare plants and exotic animals. And there were also paintings from church and aristocratic collections, including Titian and Raphael, whose ultimate destination was the Louvre. On a banner proclaimed the slogan of the day, Ils sont enfin sur un terre libre. At last, they're in a free country.
Today, there are works of extraordinary beauty for us to enjoy in the Louvre, and all because of this revolutionary plundering. There are sculptures by Michelangelo, the dying and the rebellious slaves. They were taken from the Vatican in Rome. And from the Benedictine monastery of San Giorgio Maggiore in Venice was seized this vast canvas, the wedding feast at Cana, by Veronese. Its life-size figures have been dominating the refectory for over 200 years. The painting was so big it had to be cut into two to make the journey by mule across the Alps. Vincent Delievin knows the painting intimately.
When we take a step back and get a sense of the perspective, there are the columns reaching out at the back which give it amplitude. And of course there's the colour, the greens, the blues and the reds, all bouncing off and complementing each other. It's extraordinary. Across the painting, it's the little hidden gems that I love. All the little details. And there's even a musical performance going on here in the foreground. And there's a woman over here that's looking straight at us, as if flirting with us, next to the one picking her teeth. All of these amusing little bits and pieces. Even the slightly sterner men. You can see this chap over here who's holding himself very distant and severe. Those that look like they're about to fall asleep because of the alcohol. It's such a vibrant painting, almost noisy, if you will.
But in the end, what I find extraordinary is the figure smack bang in the middle of the painting. This is the haloed figure of Jesus Christ, with the Virgin Mary by his side, staring into space, oblivious to the revelry around him. Perhaps the message here is simple. All this pleasure around me is ephemeral. What I bring you is eternal. By 1798, when this booty reached Paris, the revolutionary ardour of David, indeed of France, had cooled. After the fall of Robespierre, David was arrested and put in prison where this self-portrait was painted. So perhaps this gaze shows a certain scepticism and distaste for the rough old trade of politics. But if David was anything, he was a survivor. And on his release, the painter was ready to ride the next wave of history. Time to offer his talents to the next strong man of France.
David found himself at the beck and call of a man who said that he didn't know much about art and architecture, but he did know exactly what it meant when it came to buffing up his image. This was a man who'd been a military hero during the revolution. Then after the coup d'etat that ended the Directory, he was a first consul. He was the despot who crowned himself emperor. Yes, Napoleon Bonaparte.